Mydei, the crown prince of Castrum Kremnos and the new demigod of strife, who now sits at the front lines of our fight against the Black Tide. A noble hero indeed, but it is how he came to assume this role that reveals something truly special about the story of Amphoreus and possibly why this nation may be doomed. In the last video, I discussed some unsavory topics, and if this was your first time seeing my content, that's not how we normally do things around here. So let's talk about things that actually matter, shall we? Because with this new story, we have been flooded with a ton of new information that can't be covered in just one video. And first and foremost, I want to make a little bit of a correction here. I got my prophecies mixed up a little bit in the last video. Treebe's was that she would be split into 1,000 pieces and become dust in a foreign land, which is still incredibly dark. All shall bid farewell to one is the Chrysos heir's prophecy, which means that all of them will eventually die off, leaving only one. But why is that? Well, I believe that our demigod of strife holds the key to unlocking this question, because this is the downfall of Amphoreus revealed. Okay, so we've got a lot to cover here, and it's only right to set the spotlight on the star of the show of this patch, our crown prince of aura farming. You see, this guy carried the weight of his entire people on his back. With the Black Tide closing in and the Titan driven to madness, the Kremnoans were forced to abandon their homeland for a foreign land known as Akima. But even though they traded their war-torn land of bloodshed for a nation with a giant bathhouse and spa, they weren't happy. And this was because of what is possibly the second most significant aspect of the story so far: culture. You see, the Kremnoans were followers of strife in every sense of the word. They trained from young ages, awaiting the day that they may fight, conquer, and even die on the battlefields for glory. Glory for themselves, glory for their nation, and glory for even their Titan. Their loyalty knows no bounds, and all are instilled with the underlying sense of a warrior's honor. The Kremnoans do not flee from hardship. They embrace it, fight it, and revel in it. This is what it means to follow the path of strife, because it is in hardship that humanity shines the brightest. Only in war do humans create things that truly revolutionize life as we know it. I mean, the internet I'm using to talk to you on right now was originally created for militaristic purposes. This is why Mydei says, the agony this world needs. Because strife is the motivating factor that gets things done. This is the Kremnoan culture, something that Mydei's people have been proud of for many, many years. In fact, it's implied to be thousands of years. But this is also something that they will have to give up if they are to survive, because culture is the second most significant aspect of Amphoreus. The first is sacrifice. And this is what makes Mydei's story and his decision so powerful. He was willing to give up his culture that his own people expected him to uphold for his people to survive. Because as the crown prince who slew the previous king, it was his role to guide his people into a new age. But this new age wasn't what they expected or even wanted. But at the end of the day, this was the best decision for the fate of his beloved people. But how did Mydei come to this? Why was he so different from every other Kremnoan? Even Kratoros, his teacher, was just like every other Kremnoan who wanted to return to their previous ways. So what could possibly make Mydei in particular so special? Well, to answer that, we gotta look into his past. You see, every king of Castrum Kremnos ascends to the throne by killing the previous king, and King Euripon received a prophecy foretelling his own end by his own son Mydei's hands. and in fear of the prophecy, he casted his own son into the Sea of Souls in the most Tekken plot way possible. But just like Kazuya, Mydei returned stronger than ever with an immortal body and vengeance lighting a fire in his soul. And just like the prophecy foretold, he ended up slaying his father, the king, and cemented his legacy as the next Kremnoan king. However, this wasn't what he wanted. Mydei understood the path of strife and even learned it from his mother, but with his mother's shaken conviction, especially with the deeds of his father, this only led to Mydei questioning his people's ways and seeing the Kremnoan culture from a different perspective. And over time, he realized that over the course of a millennium, the Kremnoans have risen and fallen countless times, stuck in a loop of victories countering defeats and vice versa. And from the perspective of a kid whose father tried to kill him, Mydei saw this as fruitless and vain. This glory they fought for was nothing but selfishness and pride, and inevitably led to thousands of pointless deaths. Mydei himself knew this was wrong, but how could he simply snuff out the flames of his people's pride? Especially when they looked to him with pleading eyes asking when? When can they return to their glorious ways of slaughter? But after much contemplation, Mydei decided that the answer was never. Never again will they live a life destined for premature death. Never again will families be destroyed because of the selfish pursuit of glory. And never again will the people of Castrum Kremnos have a king. Because Mydei will be taking up Nikador's legacy and fight on the front lines against the Black Tide so that his people can live in peace. That he hopes that one day they will learn to cherish, sacrificing their culture for a future. And Mydei made a sacrifice as well, because he knows full well that he will succumb to the madness of the Black Tide. This is why he tells Finan about his one weakness, his 10th thoracic vertebra, that his body markings basically highlight for some reason. Also, funny little detail here, remember this trailer where the king dude gets backstabbed? Wouldn't you know it, that's also basically where the 10th thoracic vertebra is. I don't know what to do with this information, I just thought it was worth a mention. But that's besides the point. Because what I just explained to you is something Mydei found the strength and mental fortitude to do. However, not many others seem to be capable of following his example. Because remember those priests from Yanissopolis saying that they would rather die than flee to Akima? The people of Amphoreus are notoriously dedicated to their ideals and are entirely prepared to die for them, even if that death is pointless. They are stubborn to a fault, just like those citizens we had to save when first entering Akima. Yet another example is Anaxa, who is so dedicated to his heresy that he can't even cooperate with a woman who is trying to save his life. It is this lack of flexibility and cooperation that will get Amphoreus destroyed and has been the downfall of Amphoreus more than once, especially if you believe my Amphoreus doesn't exist theory. Mydei understood that in order to fight against a force as strong and as destructive as the Black Tide, cultural differences must be put aside in favor of combining forces to combat a world-ending threat. Something I'm afraid not enough people are willing to do. This is very much foreshadowed by the nicknames people get and how they react to them. For example, Aglaia is fine with being called Aggie and even giggled at the name Agli. Castorus is fine with being called Cass, Midemos is Mighty, Finan is Snowy, and even Wee and Don Hung got nicknames. But Anaxagoras insists on being called by his full name. You see, the nickname thing may seem small, but I think it represents something bigger. A willingness to cooperate and put aside formalities. To see each other as equals and valued allies. Notice that Krateros, who represents someone who clings to the Kremnoan culture, refers to Mydei as Mydemos. I don't know, just some pattern I'm seeing here. Anyway, I do believe that the sacrifice of culture is something that can and will hold back the people of Amphoreus. And that is the downfall of Amphoreus revealed. Oh boy, it was only a one video break, but it feels so nice to be talking about theories again. I am really enjoying the Amphoreus story so far because it has really picked up. And I still have a lot to talk about because I am picking up on the possibility that we are the villains in this story. More on that in the next video. But video spoilers aside, I think that the willingness to sacrifice history and culture is the biggest stumbling block of Amphoreus, which makes Mydei's final decision that much more special. And this is also why the third path is the finality, the discarding of the past in favor of a new beginning, the Paean of Era Nova. You know I'm right, comment finality if you made it this far. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.